lovelies, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. It is finally going up. I had the wonderful opportunity after a lot of planning and scheduling and technology not quite working. I was able to interview Tori Geiger for today's episode of Broken Hearts Talk. Tori is a CHD survivor with Epstein's Anomaly and a few other defects to talk about in today's video. She started her own business with her husband and a second business coaching chronic illness warriors. She also wrote a book which came out last year called From Vulnerable to Victorious. So we'll talk a little bit about that today also.
So do you just want to start by just telling everybody about yourself again?
Yes, I will. My name's Tori Geiger. I'm a congenital heart defect survivor and thriver. I graduated from college in 2019 with an accounting and finance degree. So I own a bookkeeping and consulting company with my husband. That's my main full-time job. And right now I also run a blog and am also an author. So that's kind of my other business that I run that has benefit towards CHD. But yes, so that's a little bit about me.
Okay, awesome. I had no idea you were married. I don't know how I didn't know that.
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Okay, so your heart defect is Epstein's Anomaly, and
Yes.
you were diagnosed in utero, correct?
Yes, I was.
So have your parents told you anything about what getting your diagnosis was like?
Yeah, basically they went in for their regular ultrasound checkups at our clinic, and the ultrasound tech was kind of quiet and could kind of like there was a vibe is what they tell me, like that they saw or felt, and then the doctor came in after that. We're going back to when my parents first got my diagnosis. Basically the ultrasound tech saw, but they could just tell. And then the doctor came in and was like, you're going to need to go see a specialist. Like at first they thought it was just gonna be like a hole in my heart because they just like couldn't quite figure it out there. So that's when they started going up to Portland and started the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is Epstein's Anomaly then?
Yeah, so Epstein's Anomaly, basically the right side of my heart is enlarged, and it's because my valves, like the flaps, don't close all the way. And so that causes, it's like malformed. The tricuspid valve is malformed. So my blood or my heart leaks. So that's the main issue. I also had a coarctation of my aorta, which was a little bit more serious when I was born. So that's what they operated on at first when I was 4 days old.
Okay. So we each had our first surgery at 4 days old, which we found out when we tried to do this interview like a week ago. How many surgeries have you had since then? And do you know the names of your surgeries?
I don't know the names. I know I just had my first open when I was 4 days old. I had my second procedure was an angioplasty when I was 2 months old. And then the third procedure was just another open heart surgery. I don't know what the name of it was. And then I had two other ablation procedures when I was in middle school and high school.
Okay. So where do you get your cardiac care, and where, I know you've changed doctors at least once. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I had the same pediatric cardiologist pretty much through growing up until I started having rhythm issues. So then I started seeing a rhythm specialist, and he actually then ended up taking over my care because from my previous pediatric, but they're in the same office, I guess. So I was up at OHSU in Portland, and so I was with their pediatrics for a while until I moved to adult, and now I'm like at the waterfront office there for OHSU with an adult cardiologist that actually specializes in like congenital, not just like general heart disease. His specialty is like he takes like the kids that's grown up with PhD. So that's nice.
That's important. And I don't think people outside of the CHD community understand that, yes, acquired heart disease is a problem, but it's very different from congenital heart disease.
Yes. It's not something you've lived with your whole life.
No. And there have been some organizations that I won't say which ones, but some organizations that maybe haven't portrayed that difference as well as they should have or could have. And so I think that's maybe riled up some of us a little bit, which I don't see as a bad thing. I don't know if some people might, but yeah, they're very different.
More education on like the differences, because I think it surprises so many people when they're like, wait, you have heart disease? I'm like, yes, but I'm like, it's a different type of heart disease that it wasn't brought on maybe by like lifestyle change, like lifestyle things. It was, I was just born with it.
I got in a car crash at the beginning of September and I totaled my car. We were fine, but because the car was totaled and I was like freaking out, we were like, let's go to the hospital just to make sure that like I didn't shake anything up because I have a pacemaker. So they took me to the ER. It was right across from a heart center. We didn't go to the heart center because we didn't feel the need to.
Yeah.
But as they were wheeling me back to a room, about 10 different nurses were like, does she have a pacemaker? Why is she here? Why is she here? Because I'm 22 and all the other patients were like old people. Like there was no reason. It didn't seem like there was a reason for me to be there, but there definitely was. And I think even within the medical community, I saw not many people understand the difference, which
it's hard to go into like ER situations because I've been in the ER several times with just like different things involving my heart and they just don't know. And then they're like, your heart's huge. Did you know that? I'm like, yes, I didn't know that. Like, and they're kind of freaking out a little bit and it's not as comforting. Like when you're in there and they're calling your cardiologist and your cardiologist like, yeah, that's normal. Like they're trying to like explain it. I think that's been interesting. Like mentally, to be like not freaking out because you know that like part of it just is the way you are and part of it's just them not understanding.
I obviously don't remember, but when I was a toddler, my parents took me to visit family in Nashville and I had an ear infection and my mom knew I had an ear infection, but we went to the children's hospital there and they were like, oh, did you know she has a murmur? And my mom's like, it's not a murmur. It's and so like we were there for several extra hours and my mom was like, can you just give us the eardrops? Like just so it's interesting. And I understand like from their perspective, they need to like balance the patient's knowledge with their knowledge. But I think in some cases you just need to give the patient the benefit of the doubt. But they're also probably a little biased. Like I've got a scar. I think I know what's going on. Okay, so you were a college athlete.
Yes.
So what was that like? What did your doctors say? Like, because I ran track for a year and my doctor was like, well, we'll do an experiment. And then I finished and he said, none of my patients will do that again. So like, what was that? Or none of his patients with my defect will do that again. So like, what was that like for you?
Growing up, basically doctors, I had my pediatric cardiologist was kind of like, just go until you can't, like, we'll just kind of see. And I never really reached that point that something happened, except when I was in high school. I guess that was a big event, but I didn't reach that. So it honestly was what kept my heart condition so healthy and just being an athlete. And looking back, my doctor's like, I'm so glad that you were an athlete because that's a big part of how I thrived. But basically just annual checkups. If things felt funny, I was stepping out of drills. My oxygen, I have like, it's funny because my oxygen levels look normal than like some CHD patients.
Can I ask what your oxygen's at?
I typically am in the 90s.
Okay, me too. Like 93, 94-ish.
Yeah, I'm probably like 95.
Okay,
sometimes higher. And I don't know. But anyways, with my defect though, because my heart doesn't pump as efficiently, blood isn't getting to my brain, to different places as efficiently. So the oxygen like isn't getting there as fast. So I get more out of breath faster than a lot of teammates would. So that was something I just would have to step out of drills. A lot of like short sprints with like short recovery time weren't my thing. I need longer recovery. And so it was just communicating with coaches. I was blessed to have a lot of really great coaches that
is awesome and important.
Some didn't. I had PE teachers that didn't understand. And I think that was my biggest barrier was PE teachers, not my actual coaches.
I didn't do PE in high school, but I did kind of notice sometimes like my PE teacher, like my mom every year would email like all of my teachers, like, these are the problems, these are the things that are going on. And usually my PE teachers were pretty good, but every once in a while they were like, huh? I'm just like, never mind. I'll just go over here.
I think it was hard too, because like I don't have a zipper scar. I have a scar on my back because they went in through the side. So most people think I just had shoulder surgery. It's basically, so for a lot of people, it's really invisible. And I also don't have a normal heart scar. So I think for people to be like, is she faking it? Like, is this like that was something I had to really deal with and just be confident of like, no, I'm not faking it. It's a you problem if you don't believe me. So I know my body. So I had a lot of really great coaches, and especially in college when I did college track, I had an amazing high jump coach that would literally be like, no, like we're going to find another workout that is going to help you, but it's not going to be a detriment to you. So I'm blessed that
that's awesome. So you played in high school. You were basketball, correct?
Basketball, volleyball, and track.
Okay. So I just started reading your book.
Yeah.
And like before even the first chapter, you talk about some pretty scary stuff that happened. Do you mind going into that here?
Yeah, totally. So I went code blue. I was at a basketball game, and I just come off playing. I was swinging on varsity. So as a freshman, I was playing on both the varsity team, and I'd swing down to JV sometimes.
Oh, awesome.
And thank you. And so for that particular game, it was a tough rival. So I went down to the JV game, played really well, but my heart was just racing like crazy. And I kind of ignored it. And so yes. And thinking, oh no, like I'm fine. Like I was on a beta blocker at the time, so it was supposed to do its job. Theoretically. And so then I got to the varsity game, and I was sitting on the bench, and like I literally like stood up to like cheer like within the first, I don't know how many, like the first quarter, and my heart just like rapid fire. And I was like, this isn't good. Like I couldn't breathe. I was like getting dizzy. So I sat back down, and it like wouldn't go away. Like there's exercises that you were given to like calm your heart. So like you like bear down on like, and try to get to calm down. Wasn't working. Told the trainer, he laid me down. You could like literally see my heart beating out of my chest, like from a distance. Like it was like insane. And then he finally was like, we can't get this to calm down. Like we're gonna have to call an ambulance. And so they called an ambulance. I was rushed to the ER and defibrillated 3 times. I was, you'll get to that later in the book. Basically, I was about ready to go into cardiac arrest if it had gone on for too long. And so they actually shocked my heart to get it back into a stable rhythm, which actually didn't even work. So they defibrillated me 3 times, and then they did an IV of like a ton of antiarrhythmic drug. And then that slowed it slowly. And then I didn't go into cardiac arrest, thankfully. So
how much of that do you actually remember?
Not much. I remember getting into the ambulance, talking to the paramedics, blacking out, arriving at the ER, and I remember like having some more questions. I don't remember being defibrillated. I just remember waking up and having my mom right there, and she wasn't there originally. So I just remember spurts. And then once my rhythm calmed down, I remember the rest of the night of just getting rushed back up to Portland just to meet with my cardiologist. And so that's what I remember.
Great.
Yeah. Events in high school.
So then what was it like after that to be an athlete? throughout the rest of high school and then still in college.
Yeah. It was mentally very traumatic getting back into athletics. I was scared to go back on a basketball court. Anytime an ambulance would go by, I'd get like shakes, just because of just the flashbacks it would just bring back. And so that was really difficult. It took some time. I went to counselors. I had surgery to fix the rhythm issue, another attempt at it. So that was good, but I think mentally it was really hard. And I think I loved basketball. It was my favorite sport, and I think that event really deterred the game for me. Basketball would have been the sport I would have loved to have played in college. But after that event, my heart just physically and mentally just wasn't in it. So I think I switched gears to being more volleyball and track focused. And I think that shifted a lot of my mental state of the trauma that happened with that sport.
Okay. So your Instagram profile says that you are a chronic illness coach. So what does that mean? How did you get into it?
Yeah.
All the things.
So currently I'm actually working on building kind of more of a coaching and course for that kind of complements the book. So my book was kind of the first release of kind of that. And so with my book, I'm hoping to just create some book clubs for women, especially to be able to go through the book together, women that have chronic illness, and be able to go through the workbook, go through it, and just dive into all the different pieces. And so that's the goal with kind of some of the coaching and community that I'm trying to just build around the platform Tori Joy Geiger.
What made you want to write from vulnerable to victorious, and what I guess what got you into this whole realm of helping other people with chronic illnesses or invisible illnesses?
Yes. With the writing piece, my grandma always had encouraged us to write down our stories. Journaling has been like a saving grace for me. And I love reading, and I also love journaling. So I get a lot of what I've learned as a business owner, as a person, from reading. And so that kind of just sparked, I've written down a lot of my story. And so that prompted me in college to be like, I'm going to turn this into a book. And then as I've learned more, I just molded it into something with my story and also something applicable. I think when it comes to the chronic illness space, I was seeing so many people, so much negativity in the CHD community, especially. And like just especially just women. I think women are just so much harder on themselves, and just so many people I'd run into, like they literally were wearing it like it was a label on like what their life could be. And I was like, no. I was like, do you know what you have been through? Like how resilient you are? Like that skill is something that not everybody has. Like you have to view it. Yeah, it sucks, but it's also a skill that you've learned. And so I wanted to really teach others that like you can have a really fulfilling and impactful life even when you're living with a chronic illness. And just look at the person you've become because of it. So that was my heart behind it, is just seeing that when you scroll through a lot of like CHD stuff, there was just a lot of
there's a lot of just people being down on themselves because of this thing that they can't control.
Yes, exactly.
Which doesn't seem fair to the disease or defect or illness or whatever you want to call it, or yourself.
Yeah.
Which is probably more important, because the problem that you have, the illness or whatever you want to call it, it's just that. It's not a living, breathing thing. It's just there. And it's just the thing that you unfortunately have to deal with, but you just deal with it.
Yeah. And so I felt just my heart was just kind of breaking to see a lot of that. And I also had a lot of CHD moms messaging me when I'd connect with them, and they're like, hey, like, how did you handle this situation? Like, how did you handle kids making fun of, like, did you ever have kids making fun of you because you couldn't do a drill or different things like that? And so I was like, wow, I'm getting a lot of these types of questions. I feel like I should do something more. And so that's kind of where it came out of. So,
That's really awesome. I know, like, I've had a few parents message me and stuff, but
Yeah.
when I was younger, my mom was a part of Touch, which is like a local to the Children's Hospital of Illinois parent support group. She was like the chair, and she started this whole thing. And so she would call my mom when there was like a new heart baby being born and be like, go take your kid and show her to all these families. So like like I said, I've had like a few parents message me, but I remember growing up and just kind of being like, hi, heart problem. Your kid has a heart problem. You'll be fine. Like kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very little, so that was about all I could do. But
but they're looking for those examples of like, because they have no idea like what can my child do? What kind of life can they live? And so I think it's fun to be able to be like, yes, like I still struggle with things, but I would say for the most part, I have a pretty awesome life, and your child can too. Like, so
like it just, there are gonna be bumps. Like you're just gonna roll with the punches. And you know, I don't, obviously neither of us know what it's like to live before. I know our parents are good at that. And I know there are some CHD patients who didn't know that they had a CHD, and that's a problem in and of itself that we can talk about at a different day. But there are people who are in that after stage and don't know what that means. And so I think we have an interesting perspective because we never had it before.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Definitely. I think there's so much I saw that mindset wise, and I would call myself more of like a mindset coach. And I'm not saying chronic illness is in your mind. It totally isn't. But I think your mindset behind it plays such a big role.
Yeah.
And so I think if us adult congenital heart defect survivors can like teach what was the mindset and the tools that we've used to live a better life than even what stats say or different things like that. Like that's the goal.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your book about? I guess we kind of already talked a little bit about it. But then what do you hope that people with a chronic illness get from it? And what do you hope people without a chronic illness get from it?
Yeah. So the book basically is, I like to call it's a framework from going from like a spot of vulnerability of feeling like you're labeled and defined by your illness to using it kind of as your superpower and sharing your story. So the goal, I would say, of the book is really encouraging and giving steps and tools to reframe that circumstance and turn it into something that you can share with others and make an impact. That's like the whole goal. I would say for chronic illness, like warriors, I want them to feel confident in themselves after reading this book and feel like empowered of like, I can do this and I have tools to even like create kind of the life that I want to. That's the goal there. I think with others that don't have chronic illness is obviously number one, to open up their eyes a little bit to people that do have chronic illness. But I think also there's a lot of principles in the book that just apply to like adversity in general. And so I think for them to have tools to battle whatever adversity that they're facing. There is a section in the book, particularly that I had my brother write, because he actually walked into the ER when I was getting defibrillated and saw me get defibrillated. And we're really, really close. And so I was like, Grant, would you just like write this portion? Because like your perspective, I think, would be eye-opening to others that are watching siblings or friends walk through something similar. And so he gave some really great tips in there of like how to support someone with a chronic illness. So I think that's the other layer of just having people understand like what does that look like not just giving them words, but like what does that look like to actually support them. So yeah, long story short.
So how have your diagnoses shaped the trajectory of what you want to do outside of CHD advocacy?
Yeah, as a business owner, I would say I'm a very tough cookie. I deal with clients that are twice my age. I'm 24, and I consult with clients that are twice my age, have been in business a lot longer than I have, but they trust me. And I think because what I've learned from my CHD, from how to have relationship, how to be empathetic, how to, invest in other people, I think that's been a skill that's really helped me on the business field.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's been exciting, I think, to see the roles that those things have played in our business. I don't know if that quite answers the question, but that's kind of.
Do you tell your clients about your heart defect? Oh my.
Yes, I do. More of the clients that I have a very close relationship with. Not all my clients, I would say, just for like a professional boundary. A lot of my clients bought my book right off the bat, and
that's awesome.
Like loved reviews and stuff. And I think it's fun when I tell people that I feel like I can have that professional level with too, and they're like, "No way!" And then they kind of get a glimpse into like who I am and what has made me who I am. And so it's been cool to see that and open their eyes up to the CHD realm too.
Yeah. So real quick, I have like one more question, but before we get to that, you have your book behind you. Do you mind showing it?
Yes, I'll grab it.
And where can people find it?
Yes, it is on Amazon, and you can get the ebook or the paperback or the hardback, any of those. I think it will be available at Barnes & Noble here soon.
That's so exciting.
So kind of fun. I'm not sure which Barnes & Noble. I know it should be available online at Barnes & Noble soon.
Okay.
I'm working on like local stores with me right now. But definitely Amazon is probably the fastest way to get it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does CHD awareness mean to you? And how does your work with like coaching and just your other business support that?
I think CHD awareness to me is advocating for CHD warriors. So whether that is research and trying to being a part of organizations that are doing big things with research and advancing the lifestyles of people that have CHD, that's kind of one pillar. But I would say CHD awareness is also like advocating for the kids that are having that rough, like PE teacher or teacher that doesn't quite understand what they're going through. So I think spreading awareness, because like a teacher might look at me and be like, oh my gosh, but then I can tell them like, yeah, but you need to do this. Like you need to be aware of this. And so I feel like that's kind of my place of really making sure that the needs are met. So I would say that's kind of the layer. And then the third is just finding ways in CHD awareness to help other warriors make an impact because of what they've gone through. So I would say those are kind of like my 3 pillars of CHD awareness.
I love it. So what does Heart Month mean to you and why is that important?
Yeah, Heart Month I think is important because it's a special like spotlight on CHD. I think everybody knows somebody that because of like the commonality of CHD, everybody knows somebody that's been affected by a congenital heart defect.
Whether they know it or not.
Whether they know it or not. Yeah, exactly. And I think spreading awareness of people to have more empathy for those that have them. Like I think dedicating a whole month, I wish we could have more than a month. We can have CHD awareness every day. But
everything was CHD awareness for us.
Yes, exactly. I just think that having the month really designated that just kind of pools the efforts to do like a mass just blast to people of like, hey, we're here. Like,
don't forget about us.
Don't forget about us. And you probably know somebody that's affected by this. So listen and try to do your part, whether or not you have it or you don't, trying to do some sort of part to make sure you're being an advocate.
Yeah. Okay, so where can people find you? On Instagram? I know you have a Facebook group, and you mentioned a blog. Do you have a website?
You can go to torijoygeiger.com, and you can also join the Facebook group from there. So I have a Facebook group called the Tori Joy Geiger Victory Tribe, and it's for chronic illness warriors, whether you have CHD, you have any chronic illness. It's a support group just to ask questions, support each other, encourage each other. So you can join that private group going to my website or just finding it on Facebook. And then you can find me on Instagram at Tori Joy Geiger. and follow me and my reels and the content for those. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got this to work.
Yes.
But yeah, is there anything else that I didn't ask that you think I should have asked that you would like to talk about real quick?
I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Thank you so much for watching. Again, you can find Tori on Instagram and TikTok at Tori Joy Geiger, and you can check her book out at her website, which will be linked below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to click subscribe below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. That really helps me to create more content that you enjoy. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I will see you next time. Stay lovely and have a meaningful day.